Welcome back to Simright Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew this beautiful BUBU kaftan with ASOKE. You can actually use other plain fabric like doll face, mikado fabric to make the ASOKE part. For this particular tutorial, I actually used ASOKE and Ankara, so you can see how it actually looks. It's very beautiful right here. So you can make a combination of ASOKE and Ankara. You can make a combination of mikado and Ankara, or adire, as you wish. So you can see this BUBU kaftan has a slit on the two sides and it has a little cowl effect on the side. We're using 3.5 yards of Ankara fabric and 1 line of ASOKE fabric. So I actually used 1 line of ASOKE fabric and 15 inches. Okay, that means you have to get 2 lines and cut 15 inches from the other line. Ankara fabric comes at 6 yards at 45 inches length. So I just cut out 3.5 yards from it. So you can see me loosening the Ankara fabric right there. So I'm going to place it and cut out 3.5 yards for this project. So I'm placing it on fold, making sure that from the folded part I have my length at 64 inches. I always like to work with 64 inches length for my BUBU. So here you can see I placed it on fold and I'm taking the measurement again to be sure I have the 64 inches length before I cut out my 3.5 yards. So here I have it at 64. So I'll just go ahead to cut out my 3.5 yards folded at 64 inches from the 6 yards of Ankara. So I'm cutting it off right now. So after cutting out that part, I'll keep it for either head tie or another project. So I'm going to place the folded part now on fold, but I want to also be more sure of my measurements. So that's what I did. So I'm very sure. So the next thing is to place the folded edge to meet the other open parts. Okay, so you see how I'm folding it. That's folding it into 4 again, and this is the center front and the center back. So the next thing I want to do now is to create a border line. I'm going to create a border line at the folded part at 1 inch, 1 inch. So this 1 inch is going to serve as the shoulder line, which is the border line, and that is where I'm going to take all my vertical measurements. So I'm taking my vertical measurements right now from that line I made. This is the shoulder line. So I'm going to place my tape at the shoulder line and I'm going to measure my hip length. My shoulder to hip measurement is 29 inches. So I'm going to mark 29 inches on that line. Then the full length right now is 63 inches. I've taken away 1 inch for my border line. So right now this is my hip line. I meant to write my hip line. And this is my full length line. So, and this is my shoulder line. So I'm going to take the neckline measurement right now. So the neckline I'm making use of is 3.5 inches. Then I'm also taking 1.5 inches for the neck depth for the back. So I'm going to connect the back neckline because I'm drafting both front and back neckline together. So the neck width for the front, if your shoulder divide by 2 is 8 inches, just take away 1 inch. So whatever your shoulder divide by 2 is, take away 1 inch and mark. I use 7 inches for the neck width for the front and 16 inches for the neck depth for the front. So right now I'm going to measure 1 inch inwards. Measure 1 inch inwards and mark. So that 1 inch I measured right now, I'm going to place my ruler on the 1 inch to the 7 inches neck width and connect like a V shape. So after connecting that, we have the neckline for the back and we have our neckline for the front. So now I'm going to place the shoulder drop. So from that border line, I'll come down by 1.5 inches. And connect that 1.5 inches with a straight line to the neckline for the back. as you can see. So after connecting that part, the next we are going to mark is the sleeve line. Shoulder drop right there, I'm going to measure 12.5 inches for my sleeve opening. And at that 12.5 inches, I'm going to go in by 4 inches. I will mark at that point 4 inches. So what I have there is 4 inches. That's what I'm trying to indicate. And 12.5 is the sleeve opening. So after we are done with that, we'll go over to the hip line. On the hip line, I'm going to measure my hip circumference divided by 4. I have 12 inches. I'll add 3 inches to it, both for ease and for sewing. So whatever I have in total, including the ease and sewing, I have 15 inches there. I will place that 15 inches on the hem line and mark. Now I'm going to connect from that hem line. I'll connect with a straight rule all the way to the hip line. But before I get to the hip line, I'm going to stop before I get to the hip line. From the hip line, I'm going to come down by 3.5 inches and I'll stop at that point because we have a cowl effect at that point. Now from that 4 inches, I'm going to connect like a cowl, meeting the 3.5 inches down below the hip line. So make sure you create a beautiful curve for your cowl part and curve it well at that point. So you also curve in the sleeve area. So we are done with the drafting of this beautiful kaftan. Now I'm going to add my seam allowance on the sleeve line. So I'm adding 0.5 inch on the sleeve line. So I'll just go ahead and add 0.5 inch all the way from the neckline to the sleeve line. So after I'm done connecting, we can now go ahead and cut the back part of this dress. Remember, we are drafting back and front together, but we are going to cut the back first before we move over to the front. So I'm cutting right now, as you can see right away. So I'll quickly cut out everything I have right there. So once I get to the neckline right now, I'll cut only the back neckline. After cutting the back neckline, we are going to separate the back from the front so we can cut the front piece. So this is what I have after cutting, and that is what I expect you to have too. So I'll take away the inner part of it, which is the back part. And then I'm going to cut out the front neckline. So I'll secure with my pin so I don't have any shift on this dress. I'll cut into the 1 inch and make sure it is 1 inch. I cross-checked it to be sure it's 1 inch. Then I will now cut that V line to the 7 inches neckline width I made for the front. So after I'm done with that, you can see what we have. So I'll just place a diagonal line on that junction of 1 inch and mark 0.5 inch because I'm going to place a notch at that point. So that notch will help us to sew the collar or the placket very well. So I'll just make a little notch, as you can see, just half an inch, should not be more than half an inch. I'm going to take the measurement of what I have on the neckline because that is the same measurement we are going to use for our placket. So from the neckline, I measured up to the notch area and there I got 17 inches. So this is my ASOKE. ASOKE comes at 7 inches regular length, and I'm going to measure the 17 inches for one part of the neckline and add 4 inches to your 17 inches. You add 4 inches to the measurement you get. So that is what I'm going to cut. So I'm taking it again from the beginning. I now have 21.5 inches because I added 4 inches. Because we are cutting 2 of it, I have to fold it so I can be able to cut 2 pieces of my placket. So this is my placket I'm using right now. So I'm going to fold it into two again, and then I will attach this placket to the neckline, the front neckline we created. I'll go over to the machine right now, and I'm going to sew the placket on the neckline. So I'm placing it this way, on the right side to right side, although Ashoke does not have right side, but I just used one part as right side. So I'm going to stitch at 0.5 inch right now. So here on my machine, I just want to show you how to stitch this part, because this part is really very tricky. So I will move out a little bit, just move out a little bit the Ashoke, and then stitch at 0.5. Make sure you align it with the Ankara. So I'm going to stitch till I get a little before the notch I made. So I'm not going to sew all through, because I'm really very careful to be sure I don't exceed that notch. You can see where I stopped. So I'm going to stop somewhere around here. You can see where I stopped right now. So I'm going to flip it the other way around so I can see the notch very clearly, and top stitch right on the notch. You don't need to pass the notch, or else you will not have a good result. So here you can see I top stitched exactly at the notch. So flipping it the other way will make you to see the notch very well. So here I'm done, and I make sure I stitch the both of them exactly at the notch as well. Right now I'm going to tuck it in. Okay, the left side of it, I'll tuck it in inside that space and bring the other one and overlay on top of it. So when you are actually working with this on this project, you are going to understand what we are doing here. So automatically the 0.5 inch notch for the straight part goes right in for you. So I'm going to secure with my pin, but I'm going to flip my dress. You can see how I flipped it, so I'll be able to secure that part, because I'll go over to the machine right now to top stitch right on top of that part. I'm going to stitch on it, as you can see now. So from one notch to the other part of the notch, I'm going to top stitch. So I'll just go ahead and top stitch, as you can see. So after top stitching, the next thing I'm going to do now is to trim out that part. But I want to first look at what I have at the front to make sure that I'm not stepping on any fabric. So I have it very good and clean. So once I've confirmed that I am not stepping on any fabric, I'm going to turn it to the back piece and then trim off the excess Ashoke fabric. So if you are using Mikado fabric for this project, or any other plain fabric, it's the same process you are going to follow for this class. So now the front is ready. We want to go over to the back. So this is the back neckline, and I'm also going to use Ashoke to face it. So now I'm going to fold my Ashoke according to my shoulder length, my shoulder width. My shoulder width is 16 inches. Divide by 2 is 8 inches. So since I folded it, I'll just mark 8 inches. So from the folded edge, just go ahead and mark your shoulder divide by 2. That is exactly what I did right here. I'm going to cut out the excess Ashoke I have right there. So once I cut it out, I'm going to use it as a facing for the back. So exactly the way we cut out our facing, that is what I'm doing right here. But it's just that this part is going to be at the front. The facing will be at the front, not inside. So I'm going to place it below and make sure I secure them appropriately. So I'll secure them appropriately right now, so I'll be able to cut out the excess I have on the neck area. So I'm trying to make sure it aligns very well. So please don't rush this part, make sure it aligns very well, so stitching will be made easy for you. So here I'm cutting out the excess I have, as you can see. So once I'm done cutting right now, I'm going to stitch the neckline. So I'm going to place the right side of the fabric, the wrong side of the fabric either, the wrong side, you can see me marking the wrong side. Place the ASOKE right side on top of it. ASOKE does not have a right side or wrong side anyway, but if you have anyone with right or wrong side, just place it the way you see me do and stitch on top of it. So here I'm done stitching at 0.5 inch and I'm marking or making notches for ease of turning. Now I'm going to flip all my seams to the part of the Ankara because I need to top stitch. So you flip your seams to the part of Ankara and top stitch so it lays nice and flat. Then give it a good press. So you can see what I have right here is actually looking beautiful and nice. So I'm going to fold in 1/2 inch on the sides of these rough edges and stitch. So I'm done stitching 1/2 inch inwards, and I'm going to place the front piece, the right side of the front piece now to the right side of the back piece, and I'm going to run my stitches on the neckline only at 0.5 inch, but make sure that you make the lines of the front ASOKE and the back are matching up accordingly. Then you go ahead and stitch. So after stitching, this is what I have. Remember we will have a little excess, just trim it out. The excess is coming from the front placket. So here the dress is almost ready. So now you can open it up and give it a good press on the sleeve area. So this is what I have right now. So I'm going to spread it open. Make sure I pin the back placket accordingly. So you can see they are aligning, the placket at the back and front are aligning appropriately. So I'm going to secure with my pin. Make sure you dress it very well, secure with your pins. So once you secure with your pins, you can now go ahead and top stitch around the back placket or facing. So I'm just taking my time to ensure I pinned that back so it relaxes nice and flat before I stitch. So just take your time at that part, don't rush it, so you have a good work done. So here I'm done stitching and I gave it a good press too. So the next thing now is to cross the placket and pin. Automatically it crosses for you. So wherever it crosses for you and is relaxed, just pin at that point. But for me, what I did was to take the measurement from the neckline. I got 10 inches. So you can just use 10 inches as a guide when making yours, so it does not open too much on the bust area. So now I'll go over to the machine to stitch that cross. I'll call it crisscross. So I'll just stop stitch at the crisscross line to ensure that this part relaxes nice and beautiful. So after back stitching at that point, we are done with this project. So you can top stitch the size of it if you want, but I gave mine a good press. So I'm going to take the measurement on the sleeve area so we can sew the sleeve. So I got 25 inches. So this 25 inches I got here, that is what I cut for my ASOKE too. So I cut 25 inches for the two sleeves. But I'll put them together this way and stitch at 0.5, and I'll repeat the same thing for the other sleeve and I'll stitch at 0.5. So this is what I got and this is how I did it. I open up the stitching seams and put it together on fold. So that is the neat way to make bands. So I just make sure I arrange it very well. So after arranging it appropriately, the next thing I did is to bring back the dress. So I'm going to bring back the dress right now, and I will set the band aside, and you have to close the sides of the dress before we stitch the band. So I'm putting the dress together. On the side I'm sewing 0.5 inch all the way till I get to the straight part. I will go in by 1 inch. So I will leave a slit of 20 inches length. So here my slit is 20 inches. I've stitched and I left that 20 inches for my slit. Make sure you make notches at the corners of the cowl part and at the corners of the sleeve as well. So I also made the same notch on the other part of the dress too, for ease of movement and ease of ironing too. So now I'll bring back my sleeve and I'm going to insert the band I made. Make sure the stitched part is on the armhole part. So we have one stitched part on the ASOKE. I'll place it on the armhole part, insert it into the sleeve, and then go to your machine and run 1/2 inch stitch to hold it together. So after running the stitches, this is what I have, and I also did that for the other side as well. So now my sleeve is ready and the dress is ready as well. So the next thing we'll do now is to stitch the slit area. So I just fold in a little and slit and top stitch on the slit like that. Of course, you know how to go about slit stitching. So I'm done with it. I gave my sleeve a good press. You can see how beautiful this dress is looking. I believe you learned a lot from this tutorial. So if you have not subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? Please turn on your notification bell, subscribe to Simbright Fashion Academy YouTube channel. We upload videos on this channel every day and you have a lot to learn with us. And we also have our online classes on Telegram as well. You can click on the link below to join our class.